podcast. I'm your host, Tim, and joining me today is a man last week who had no faith that the Knicks and the Heat were going to meet up in the second round. I'm curious how he feels this week. What's up, Scotty? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Eating a little bit of crow, a little appetizer. Hopefully no dinner on that one.
Jimmy motherfucking Butler. Trust me, I'm a man that doesn't curse much, but that deserves the motherfucker. He is one of the greatest in the playoffs. This is a team that absolutely shit the bed in the regular season. And of course, as a biased fan, I was like, nah, they'll turn it up. They're built with playoff players. Kyle Lowry maybe will be able to do something. Tyler Hero, before the hand injury, I thought would be able to be a good, nice, role player in the playoffs, dropping 25 points. Who knew Duncan Robinson can come in and hit a couple of threes, finally make up for that, lack of performance past couple of years. And Jimmy Butler, none other than Jimmy Butler, a man that looked like he was absolutely exhausted midway through the game after one quarter. Like, I was like, there's no chance. The Bucks, full steam ahead. Giannis Antetokounmpo was doing the Tasmanian Devil, spinning on everybody, dunking on everybody. Brooke Lopez hitting the threes. I'm like, yo, this team is gonna torch them. There's no way Miami can go up 3-1. But guess what? Jimmy Butler, 6 minutes left in the game, scores 20 points. The Bucks only got 13, but Jimmy outscored them 20 to 13 in the last 6 minutes. Were you able to watch the game? What did you think of that?
I did watch most of the game, missed a few minutes, but I saw the end, particularly like the final fourth quarter, and I almost turned it off. But Giannis makes that great no-look pass. Lopez
Sure.
lays it in. It's at 12 with 6 minutes left, and normally if it gets down to like 12, like 2 minutes left, I'm like, all right, I'll give it like 3 more minutes. I'm thinking the Bucks going to go up maybe 15 at this point. I'll give it 3 more minutes and get ready for the next game.
Sure.
That's especially it was like a really nice no-look pass by Giannis. Like, oh, that felt like a finishing play. It felt like that's it. Bucks are in control.
Yeah.
And
they
then
were
we just
favorites, even though they were on the road. They were up 109 to 89 with 6 minutes left, and then 13 points. That's all they could do. It was incredible. Like, honestly, Jimmy Butler, he could only score 2 points in the second quarter. He had, where is it? I mean, he's averaging 37 points per game on 14 makes, 22 attempts, 63% for the whole series. In game 4, 56 points, fourth most all time. Michael Jordan, 63, the magical, loss, but he scores
it's the
60. This
Jesus
is
the
a man,
Sneakers
Michael
games.
Jordan, by the way, random fact, Nerdie sports audience. Michael Jordan has scored 50 plus points in the playoffs 8 times. There's a
Wow.
reason why people say he's the GOAT, right?
Yeah.
But he's fourth all time. He's tied with, our good man Charles Barkley for fourth. Bubble Donovan Mitchell got 57 points.
57.
But Jimmy had 22 points in the first quarter, 2 points in the second, 11 points in the third, and then 22 points in the fourth. 20 of those were in the last 6 minutes. It was wild.
Well, I don't want to take anything away from what Jimmy did because I think you actually said that too fast. He's shooting 63%. Like, you gotta let that
63% in the playoffs. Yes.
like let that settle in. He's a guard. I mean, prime Shaq, like 2001 Shaq,
Yeah.
was shooting like 61% or something.
Yeah.
As a center, and probably his like best year was maybe 2001, around then 2002. Like 63% is just insane. That's like what a quarterback throws their accuracy. That's not what basketball players shoot. So that's incredible. And over 50 from three. I don't remember the exact number. I think it's like 54 or something like that from 3-pointers also. And he's not like, legendary 3-point shooter.
Not
It's
at all.
just
Actually,
playoff
in the
Jimmy.
game, I was like, he's not going to have legs to hit these threes. And then, like, with 3 minutes left, he, like, jumped higher than I've ever seen him jump before at the 3-point line. Dagger. And when he, like, dunked, I know, like, it was the first quarter, but, like, Giannis was also out of position. But Giannis goes for the block. He gets a hand on the ball. Jimmy dunks on him. Like, side. It wasn't a full poster, but he dunked. I was like, oh, okay, maybe. But we need more than just Jimmy. And I'm like, all right, Duncan, what can you do? But who knew? Jimmy could hit 50. Unreal.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why they're heavy dogs tonight. I mean, tonight's matchup's disgusting. I have it here. I think they're like 12-point dogs or something. It's absolutely unreal. Yeah, 12-point dogs. But all the teams that are down 3-1, the Cavs, the Grizzlies, and the Bucks are all favored. but nobody's favorite as much as the Bucks, of course. But here's the our championship favorite, our number one pick,
Yeah,
down
I
three to
think of
one to the Miami Heat that lost
in a
to the Hawks.
pretty consensus. I felt like we were going on a limb.
No,
Vegas
no,
is
no. I
favorite.
agreed with you.
Everybody was saying the favorites.
Yeah,
And I think that's what's so surprising. Like, nobody wanted to accept, as Miami's making a run. And you're like, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then they like tied a game, and the Bucks actually scored to take a 2-point lead with 90 seconds left. And you still in your mind, you're like, okay, up two. You have Giannis. You
yeah,
should be able to close here. I don't want to take anything away from Jimmy at all, but I do want to mention for a second. I mean, that is I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but a borderline fireball offense by Budenholzer. You let a 12-0 run without calling a timeout.
yeah,
There's no at 6-0 run, it's got to be a timeout.
yeah.
8-0 run, it's a timeout. I mean 10. I don't know. 10's a big difference from 10 from 12, but at 10, like, how is he running out of the court getting a technical just to get a timeout called? Like, you're just sitting there watching the lead melt like a popsicle in Miami seat. That's a terrible, unacceptable coaching job there to not call a timeout. And then the whole coaching plan as a whole, Miami, without Tyler Hero, their second best scorer, there's not a lot of people that can score on that team. Duncan Robinson's hitting threes, but is it a crazy philosophy to consider double teaming a guy? He's shooting over 60%, and you don't want to call a double on him. Why?
That's what I
Like,
thought with the
it
Bucks.
blows my mind.
That's what I thought with Boston last night, guarding Trae Young, another performance. So, Nerdy
Mm-hmm.
Sports audience, our plan this week was actually to like do a deep dive into the history of the Celtics and 76ers series. Two teams that no two other teams have faced each other more times in the playoffs. I'll break it down later, but like all of a sudden the Hawks, they're playing tomorrow. We weren't supposed to have any basketball tomorrow, but Trae Young, after shooting 4 for 12 from three, hits a dagger 3-pointer to get up two and win the game. Ice cold Trae, unbelievable.
I want to look big picture on that one because I hate to overlook Atlanta because I still believe, and I think most people believe, that Boston's going to win the series. Like, right now, we're like, no, this is not even like Miami's up 3-1. But Atlanta's still down 3-2, and people are like, they're not going to win 2 more in a row. That would be 3 in a row. It's not going to happen.
They're
It's what most people
7-point
feel.
underdogs at home tomorrow.
But here's the thing. People might have forgotten because Philadelphia is the only team that had advanced. Well, that last night, a couple of teams advanced. They've been resting for a long time. Embiid hurt his knee. So every game you lose to Atlanta, if you're Boston, that is critical.
Yes.
If you win last night, game one, Embiid might not play. Now maybe he does play game one. So instead of getting maybe an easy game one against Philly with no Embiid, you might have him the entire series. What if you could have swept Atlanta, which we felt they could have, and we weren't that much on them. I think most people felt they could have swept them. Then you could have played Philly, only getting like 2 days rest, probably no Embiid for game one, maybe no Embiid for game two, and maybe walk an easy series. Let's say, theoretically, he's out for the first 2 games. Very possible because he still might miss game one, and it's been an extra 5-6 days. You might have been able to take an easy 2-0 lead and basically cruise that series, and now he might be at, say, 80-90% health playing game one because you're giving him this extra almost week now of rest. What if Atlanta wins one more game? It'll be up to a full week of rest that Philly just gets to sit in the sideline and watch Boston play with their food, for lack of better words.
Basically. No, I totally agree. I mean, coming into this, I was like, all right, I guess I'll pick Boston because if something happens to Giannis, if something happens to Milwaukee, then the Celtics are the team to beat. And they still are. A lot of people are still picking them to win, and they were minus 1,200 to win that series versus the Hawks for a reason. But for, like, another coaching error, like, what's he doing, man? I mean, he's a first-year head coach in the playoffs, trying to figure it out. But it seems pretty simple to me. Like the Cavs issues with JB, like another coaching issue, like the Cavs basically are losing, in my opinion, primarily because they're playing too many bigs for Jared Allen, and I know they're only 2 of their best players, right? Like it's basically 4 guys and then nobody else on the Cavs. But it's not the NBA that you're going to play Al Horford and Robert Williams. Like you got to have Derek White in the starting lineup. You got to have obviously Brown and Tatum, and then Marcus Smart's got to come off the bench. I know Marcus Smart won Defensive Player of the Year last year, but like he couldn't even guard Trae Young. Like he can't guard anybody this year. Like he's a fluke right now. It's tough to see. I'm nervous about him. I'm not gonna lie.
It's not a crazy thing, and unlike shooting, there's shooter slump. They say shoot your way out.
Yeah.
Defense is all effort, hustle, and energy. So it's not uncommon to see a defensive player of the year kind of drop off because you just hit it. You hit a brick wall. It's like age and effort. So it's not against him. Like I've seen other defensive players where the 1 year they're great, the next year they drop because you just get 1 year older. It's not shooting where it is a diminishing return. It drops fast. 1 year you're an offensive defender. The next year you're just 1 year older. You got one step shorter. You can't defend as well, and he's not a great offensive player. That's hurt him. You mentioned the coaching thing, almost identical to Milwaukee. They were up 12 points, very similar, with 5 minutes and 20 seconds left against they're a much superior team. The only reason that that's not being like completely hungover is because everybody still thinks they're going to win. They're still up 3-2, and it's just going to be like, well, who cares? It's like the Steph Curry timeout, which maybe we'll mention later, where it's like, okay, Golden State wins the game, so it's like, oh, that's a funny thing. Now we move on from it. If the end result is the same, nobody's going to care. But we'll see in the second round, assuming again Boston gets there, does that affect it? And will we be looking back at this if they're in Game 7 with Philly and say, man, they could have had Philly on the ropes, but instead they gave them an extra 4 days rest.
Trae Young scored 38 points on 33 shots. How can you not double team the guy? You have Malcolm Brogdon, an amazing defender, 6th man of the year. Just lock him up. There's no DeJounte Murray. Nobody trusts Collins. Stop lobs to Capella. You have Robert Williams, one of the best defenders. I know Al Horford's a great veteran presence, but he's more of like, he's a little too slow right now. He's getting a little quick. Like, it seems pretty simple. Of course, from our perspective, like, we think we could do a better job. And I'm not saying I could specifically do a better job, but it seems pretty obvious. Like, Malcolm Brogdon, lock down Trae Young. I'm sure it'll happen tomorrow night. They're 7-point favorites on the road in Atlanta for a reason. But they're 2 losses away from losing. It's definitely possible. We thought it was 100% a lock. We were debating who's going to get swept. Like, who has the higher odds of getting swept? The Nets, who are clearly worse than the Hawks, but like we just didn't trust the 76ers as much as the Celtics. But honestly, like, kind of a coin toss at this point. I'll still take Boston. I do have both teams in our little pick 'em. But what do you think? So if we project, who would you take next round? Let's say the Sixers and the Boston Celtics both make it. Who would you take heads up? Let's say Embiid's healthy.
Well, I'll just say in a way almost include Milwaukee in this. I'm happy that the East got a lot more entertaining. We mentioned before it started, we said, oh, this East looks a little like chalk. Now suddenly the East seems a lot more open. You have Milwaukee maybe not getting out in the first round. Cleveland being upset. Boston having some floundering. So I feel like the East now just became a lot more entertaining. When before the playoffs started, I was like, oh man, I just want to watch the West. The East is going to be just chalk. So that's great for all of us as fans. If today I still lean toward Boston, I think they match up really well with Philly in the regular season. The last 2 playoffs they beat them. So I still lean toward that, and I don't trust playoff James Harden, who has been playoff James Harden. He has not been there. Luckily, Tyrese Maxey has been covering that, and really James Harden is now at 3 for them. So I lean toward Boston, but it's closer now for me.
Yeah.
Like, if it was before the playoffs started, and we assumed these teams would meet in the second round, I was leaning like 75% Boston. Now I'm more like 55%. Like, it's very close. And, a question people have to ask themselves, we can go all the way back to October, is coaching situation. There was a big coaching scandal for Boston. We know what happened there. They had to let it go. They moved on to a first-year coach. And the Trae Young thing is this first-year coaching mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
What if they still had Ime Udoka? Would they be in a better position? How would they be? Is that going to come back to haunt them 8 months later?
And now Ime's in Houston. He got signed with the Houston Rockets. It's tough. You kind of got to get rid of him from the culture situation, but he was a great coach for sure.
No, you have to get rid of him. I agree. I'm just saying, if they end up losing, you'll have to scratch your head and wonder what they would have been if there wasn't a scandal, if they could have kept them.
I mean, they're so great. Have Jason Tatum after last year, I'm like, okay, he's going to take that next step. And I feel like it is tough to keep taking that next step each and every year, which makes guys like Steph Curry and LeBron James so incredible that they could just keep going and going and going and getting better and better every year. Even somebody like Kawhi, this is a whole different story, but he is basically, an up and down career where at times I'm like, dude, you should be like the best player in the world, but you're just not playing enough. That's a whole different story. But All right, I want to give you the little history lesson. We're going to mainly focus on it, but I might as well just kind of run through it real quick. So, between the Celtics and 76ers, they played 109 playoff games. Celtics have won 62 of those, so 62 to 47, all the way back dating to when, you know, Philadelphia was in Syracuse. They were Syracuse Nationals, which they became the Sixers in 1963. But if for some reason the 76ers played Hawks, then we have a rematch of Trae Young versus Joel Embiid, where Trae Young was able to make the Eastern Conference Finals after beating the 76ers in 7 games in 2021, and where people are like, oh, well, maybe this guy's good, you know, maybe he's that next level. And
Mm.
the whole Luka Doncic trade wasn't just like a joke. It's like, okay, maybe it's just
Yeah.
like pick your poison. Who's the better offensive threat? They both suck on defense, but who could actually, create more? Like Trae Young's almost a much better passer than he is a shooter. I thought he would be able to like light it up from three, but shooting like 5 for 13 isn't. It's not the worst, but it's not great. But he just keeps shooting, and I feel like Trae Young, all of a sudden, I mean, he won most overrated player of the year from the players. The players, voted themselves. He's a guy that just doesn't even fit. And I remember I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast, and Kyle Mann was talking about who would you rather, Derek White or Trae Young, and it was almost like easy. They're like, of course, Derek White, and I'm like, oh, geez, is Trae Young really this like underrated or overrated? And now all of a sudden, I feel he's a little underrated. How do you feel about how like what percentage chance would you give them to win the series, to win two?
Uh, I mean, I would give them maybe a
Okay,
5%
exactly what I
chance.
was thinking.
You know, I don't think that's a good matchup for them at all. Um, something to keep in mind is Trae Young the most overrated player, or just is it more likely he's the most disliked player? Because he makes, let's
Yeah,
just be
right.
honest
He's
here.
so cocky, and
He
he's like,
scores,
he's mid. He's all right.
he scores a 3-pointer with he scored a 2-pointer with
Yeah,
7 seconds left. That gives him the 1 point
sure.
lead initially. 7 seconds on the clock. He starts jumping. The team does not celebrate with him at all. His own teammates
Sure.
do not like him. There's been rumors about it. The Atlanta Hawks franchise mentions trade rumors for him, 48 hours before the playoffs started? They dropped that leak. The franchise leaks that they're thinking of trading him on the offseason 24 hours before the playoffs started. Even though a lot of people are like, oh, well, Boston's going to sweep or whatever. Still, you think you want to get your team in a good mental stage right before they're about to play Boston? Like, yeah, we're probably going to
Yeah,
trade our best player.
never give up.
Like,
Come on.
maybe he's not the most rated player. Maybe he's just the most disliked player. Remember, you just mentioned that poll was an anonymous poll
Yes.
by the players. And if the players put who's like the players do have bias, just like any human being, especially if you're anonymous. You're going to skew it. For you to pick somebody that's saying is the most overrated, part of that might be like, I don't like playing with the guy.
Mhm.
So I think that has to weigh in. Maybe he's not the most overrated. Maybe he's just somebody that nobody could get along with. He's burned through 3 head coaches. And like I said, we have anonymous teammates coming out. We have the franchise. People don't want to play with him. So it could just be more of that, because clearly he's got some skills. He can ball. Like, all you got to do is look at the last game.
Yeah, but you need a little bit more in the NBA. There's a lot of guys that can score. I think about this all the time. Seeing a guy like Keldon Johnson on the Spurs, he was one of the like
Mhm.
league leaders in points per game this year. Like, how many guys can actually score like 25 points a game if you just give them as much play as possible?
Yeah,
If you're gonna give me 38 shots and I'm a shooter, I should be able to score 30. Like, come on, So I could see
sure, absolutely.
why that's a guy I don't want to play hoops with if like I am skilled, and that's why Dejounte Murray is a tough fit. But maybe they got Dejounte Murray to replace Trae Young. They're like, all right, let's see if they could work. I thought it was a weird fit, and it was awful. That's why I was so disappointed when the Heat lost to them in the play, and I'm like, oh shit, maybe everybody was right. Maybe the Heat do suck.
Well,
And
no, the Heat just playoff Jimmy
yeah,
is
oh
playoff
my god,
Jimmy. He does not include play. He's not playing Jimmy. Clearly, we learned that this year, that he's only playoff Jimmy. Playing does not count for him, because Miami's playing was very
he's
disappointing.
easily the best player
But
in the playoffs right now. It's not.
yeah,
It's crazy, especially with the head-up matchup with Giannis. Like Devin Booker is lighting it up too, but he's at least like shooting a few more or a few less shots a game. They're both averaging 37 a game, 14 makes, but Booker averages 2 more attempts. Like, it's not a big difference. But he's also, him and Kevin
Yeah.
Durant are playing 3 more minutes than any other player in the whole playoffs per game. They never get benched. It's wild. I think they are going to enjoy a little bit of rest. But that Denver Phoenix matchup is extremely interesting. You got the Suns, second pick. I got the Nuggets real late. How do you feel? How do you feel about that? I want to do a heavy deep dive in the East. Let's just splash a little Suns Nuggets preview.
Well, I definitely agree with you. I think Phoenix is lucky to get some time off because they need it more than anybody else. They got Durant and Booker are number 1 and number 2 in minutes. I can't remember which was first, but those are the top 2. Chris Paul is number 9, I think, and at like 38 years old too. On top of that, they
Yeah,
play
oh,
in
it's
like 6-guy
insane.
rotation basically. They need to rest more than anybody else. And I got to be honest, I'm not confident. I took Phoenix my second pick. I'm like, oh, this is the best team in the West. I'm not confident at all
Yeah,
right now. And I got to like, I would say it's a coin flip for me. It's 50-50 at this point. Pre-playoffs again, like, we make it a pick. So pre-playoffs, I'm like, oh, they're going to crush them. I thought they were going to crush the Clippers, which gave them a dogfight, especially considering there was no Kawhi.
exactly.
And I was like, oh, they'll crush past the Nuggets. Now I'm like, I don't know. I could very easily see Denver winning because besides the fact you have 2 levels of fatigue, you have fatigue where I wonder can Phoenix play, and B, the more fatigued you are, the more likely you are to have a stress injury. And if somebody goes down, especially they got players with injury histories, Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, that it's over. Like, let's go back a few years ago. I think it was it 2017 when Chris Paul was with the Rockets? They up 3-2 on Golden State. He tweaks his hamstring. That's a partial fatigue injury. Like, that's a tweak injury. It's not like I broke something. It's just a fatigue injury. Could that happen again? And they're already playing like a 6-man rotation. So I'm worried that one of their more injury-prone players, particularly, could just give out. Never mind exhaustion. You start missing shots. Like, oh, Kevin Durant is cold. Is he cold or is he just tired? And that's why the shots are coming up short. So the
Yeah, they're
example for
expecting
that.
him to be like the best defender as well. It's tough with Chris Paul, especially now in his career. It's hard to bet against Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. It's really tough to bet against them. But Aiton's not a dog, and for him to play defense against Jokic, oh my God, that's going to be tough. Jokic's just going to toy with him. He's so much smarter. He's, arguably the best player in the NBA with Giannis and Joel Embiid, but I don't really even consider Embiid on that level right now. I would still lean Phoenix. I got to go with Phoenix just because Kevin Durant. But like you're saying, his likelihood of injury is so much better, so much greater than Jokic. And if the Phoenix Suns can't guard Norman Powell and Russell Westbrook after everybody wanted to just toss Russell Westbrook to the curb, how are they going to handle Jokic and Murray and Porter? Michael Porter Jr. may have an amazing series. He may not be able to last a whole regular season, but that man's got a lot of talent. This team also knows
Yeah.
everybody's shitting on them, and this is the time to shine. Like, I would much rather have the chemistry than have the skill. That's what really wins in the NBA. Like, it's hard to bet against Kevin Durant. I'm just such a Kevin Durant fan. That man has consistently just been absolutely phenomenal each and every year. He's made the playoffs so many times. He's lost to the champion I think 5 times or something in his career. But let's circle back to the East. I'm very curious. So my opening was kind of joking about your comment last week was about, I was like, all right, man, I was thinking in my car ride home from the Hamptons, long week, a little just relaxing, listening to podcasts, and I'm like, and this was a week ago. I'm like, oh my God, is it possible? Are the Heat going to be able to play the Knicks? Like, for me, that was my childhood. Like, that was everything. They played in the playoffs in 1997, 1998, 1999, and 2000. That's when I was like 7 to 10. That was like
Wow.
prime, like just getting all the juices, getting excited about basketball. I can't have a vivid memory of what exactly happened, but I remember loving it. And I'm like, my brother was a Knicks fan. I was a Heat fan just because brother rivalries and all that kind of stuff. So I was always excited to see them play back in the playoffs again, and it didn't happen until 2012. And at that point, we all know what happened. The Miami Heat were just, you know, the Heatles and wrecked everybody, even the Boston Celtics. They destroyed that team. Oh my God, they were so amazing that year, and they were so determined to win after losing to the Mavericks the year before. Nobody was going to stop them. So, that was a 4-1 Heat victory. It wasn't even close. But, the Knicks historically have pretty good tracking record against the Heat. But it's kind of funny, actually. In the regular season, the Knicks have won 79. In the regular season, the Knicks have won 69 wins. The Heat have 65. And in the playoffs, it's 15-14 with the Heat getting the lead. Like, even this regular season, it was such a coin flip. Like, it's such a tight matchup. They know the rivalry. It's it's just something I really want to watch. I'm so excited for the potential possibility. And now they're both up 3-1. They're both playing tonight, potentially clinching. The Heat, of course, are 12-point dogs. The Cavs are, I think, 4-point dogs. Sorry, the Knicks are 4-point dogs because the Cavs are down 3-1 at home. Like, you can't possibly lose. But let's focus on the Knicks since we talked so much about Jimmy Butler. Let's give the Knicks a little love. We were talking about the coaching before, coaching mismatch. We were talking about the bigs before. It's hard to see like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley at the same time. Like, I think Evan Mobley's just not ready yet. Without over explaining myself, let me hear your thoughts on the Knicks and the Cavs, and what percentage chance would you give the Cavs to come back down 3-1? Can they win 3 in a row? Like, that's so hard, right? Yeah,
I don't think they can. I mean, I know I picked the Cavs before the series started. I
I did.
think you did too, even though you had the Knicks in the draft. But like, just the prediction. And then we both said after game one that this was the #1 series. Like, okay, I only need one game where every other game was like not be a personal moment. Okay, one game. No, the Knicks are going to win this one. And they've done so. Like, they've undressed the Cavs. I mean, you look at the scoring for the Cavs 93, 79, 90. They can't score. And I don't understand why. I mean, first of all, the 79 jumps out. Like, in today's NBA,
Yeah.
2023 NBA, 79 points is like, people hit that at halftime, and it's not uncommon. I'm not saying every half, but you'll see 80-point first half about once a week in this regular season. You'll see it. 79 points? Are you kidding me? Like,
They're so
what happened?
dysfunctional, man.
Do-
The lowest of the whole
Donovan
playoffs so
Mitchell had that
far.
first great game one,
Even lower than the T Wolves. And
where
all they got is
there's been,
Anthony Edwards.
yeah. And like, I feel like, I'm giving a compliment and an insult at the same time, but, Tom Thibodeau is thoroughly help coaching Cleveland, and he hasn't been what's considered a great coach in almost 10 years, like since he was back in Chicago. Since then, as anything, he was voted actually most coach that players least likely want to play for in the same poll that had the most overrated player, Trae Young. Players voted Thibodeau, the last coach they want to play for. So it's not like he's known as this guru. Like, Spoelstra, I'd say, is top 3, might be the best coach. What he's doing in Miami. Tom Thibodeau is not supposed to be this ultimate genius, and he is undressing Cleveland. I don't know what's going on there. It's like, it's all unraveling. Maybe it's a little bit of inexperience. I'm confused. You mentioned Jimmy Butler at 56. Donovan Mitchell had 57 just like a year
Yeah.
ago. Like, what's happening? He had 38 game one, disappeared. I don't know, but I think that series is over. I actually think the Knicks win tonight and end it 5.
Yeah, so
But
the
definitely win
Knicks
series.
are 6-point underdogs on the road. The Grizzlies are the ones with the 4-point favorite.
That's the only bet I'm actually taking. I'm
Lakers
personally
plus
going to
4.
put a small wager on the Knicks to cover.
Oh, yeah.
Knicks to cover, I'm saying. I think they win, but I definitely think they
6,
cover
yeah.
even if they lose.
Yeah, 6 is tough. I mean, so I thought pre-series, Julius Randle's going to get shut down. Isaac Okoro is going to be a little locked down. Brunson. They're going to have enough offense between Garland and Mitchell. This team can't compete. But just seeing like Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson just out muscle him, like, it's tough. Like, Randall's having a god awful series. Isaiah quickly is like not even really a big
Yeah.
factor after being like, potentially 6-man of the year. Malcolm Brogdon's clearly way better, but that's a side fact. But yeah, I mean, we knew it after game one. I didn't want to overreact to the other series, but I'm like, yeah, they're just more physical. And I think this is going to be consistent. Jalen Brunson's footwork in game 4 was so unreal. Like, I love it. The Garden was just rocking. Like, this team's definitely going to win. Like, the Bucks probably got a good shot of coming back. Like, you can never count them out. And Jimmy Butler may be absolutely exhausted. For them to win tonight, like, there's a reason they're 12-point underdogs. They're in Milwaukee. Giannis isn't going to slow down. That team is substantially better, so it's probably going to be 3-2. Um, but yeah, I think the Lakers and the Knicks both take over today and close out the series. I don't see any life in the Grizzlies. I don't even really. Do you even have anything you want to talk about with that? I feel like it's like the Grizzlies are just such a dysfunctional team. They don't play well together. It's actually a tough watch. Like Rui Hachimura is lighting them up. Austin Reeves is an absolute all star against Dylan Brooks, even though Brooks isn't really guarding him, he's guarding LeBron most of the time. But this is a team that should be really, really good on defense. They have the defensive player of the year in Triple J. I just don't see them even having any life left. I feel like this is the type of team that just like throws in the towel and it's like, they just don't have the emotional burst. Do you see it differently, or do you see the Lakers closing out tonight?
I do see the Lakers closing out. I think Memphis's only hope is that the Lakers are a little tired because they are an older team. So maybe on 2 days rest, 1 day rest, like playing every other day, maybe they could get the win. I don't think so. I think the Lakers close out. The biggest thing takeaway from this is more I'm just looking at, wow, look how awesome LeBron James is. Like the series feels like it's over. Memphis looks immature. If they really do, if they
Yeah.
look confused, sloppy, lost, the team just looks confused. Their one win is without Ja, so then some people are like, oh, better without him, which is just another piece on top of the story of like this dysfunctional team. You had the Dylan Brooks thing, which looks terrible for him. He's trash talking now. He doesn't even speak to the media for the last 2 games because they've lost. So that's another thing. It's just they look like a team that has thrown in the towel. You said of all the teams that are on elimination, I actually give them the least amount of chance to win because they don't look like they're trying as hard. Like even Atlanta, I give them a better chance because they look like they're hustling. Even though you would say they're on paper they're much worse than Memphis,
Yeah.
but they're
It
trying.
almost seems like the
Where it just seems
Celtics
like
aren't
Memphis is
trying. Sorry to cut you off,
confused.
but like that's the team that's being outworked, and the only reason the Celtics are in it is just because they're
Yeah,
so much more talented. They look at that matchup, they're like, it's a cakewalk. We're fine. We don't need to hustle. We don't need to play that hard. That we'll win eventually, but they should have more of an urgency, like you said. I'm like, all right, we see, the 76ers, even though they swept, like they're back against the wall with Joel Embiid injured. Like we should step on their throat and win this series. But then on the other side, like the Grizzlies, I don't see it. There was a reason we haven't really talked too much about the series. The Lakers had full control, even though going into it, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a toss up. I'm like, is Anthony Davis reliable? But he's consistent. LeBron James is averaging 13 rebounds a game. Like he's got more rebounds than anybody. He's got more rebounds than
yep,
Gobert, more rebounds than Jokic, more rebounds than all these big boys. He just knows where to go, knows the positioning,
yep.
using that old man strength.
LeBron, he's LeBron is doing what he has to. He's not shooting well. He hasn't been scoring well. Everybody, and forget the whole drop 40 on me thing. And they're like, well, 2020 is 40. The rebounds and the points. He's 1 from 7 for 3. The whole series, he hasn't been shooting well, but he's doing what the best players do, which is I can't hit. I don't got the shot tonight, then I'll be the rebounder. I'll be a defender. He's saying he's not just sitting in the corner and pouting because he missed a 3-pointer. He's putting in the shots that have to go. So I like that a lot. He's doing what he has to do. Hustle, putting that old man. I will wear whatever hat you want. Do you want me to be passing the ball, rebounding the ball, score the ball in the end? He made the shots when he had to in the end, but it's whatever you need me to do. I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, I know going into this podcast, I thought we would heavily talk about the Eastern Conference, but the Western Conference is still equally as intriguing. And honestly, for me, the best series, I mean, for some reason, I'm so intrigued by this Cavs Knicks series, but it's sloppy as hell. The best series so far has been
Oh
the
yeah,
Warriors and the Kings. Like, it's 2-2.
definitely.
They're playing tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern time. It's prime time. Golden State Warriors are favored by 2 on the road. Like, another coin toss matchup. Like, really don't know who's gonna win. And even like, so we were re-celebrating Easter. Unfortunately, like we weren't able to celebrate Easter with my family 2 weeks ago with the rest of the world. So we celebrated Easter this Sunday. So I went over to my mom's house. We had good food, and I'm the only person. I'm the only person in my family that likes basketball. But I'm watching with my cousins and my uncles, and they like slow jabs. They like making fun of me. I'm like, you're the only one that likes this. How do you like this? Whatever. But they gave it a shot. They were watching Steph Curry. And that's what's so amazing about Steph Curry. That was the thing that like stood out to me. there were like oohs and ahs from my aunts and uncles, and like people barely even know like what basketball is about, but they could see the skill. Like you watch a guy, not to talk too much about the NHL playoffs. We're more basketball guys, but you watch a guy like Connor McDavid. He's substantially faster, stronger. He just looks different. Even if I've never watched a hockey game before, I'd be like, all right, that guy's probably really good, right? You watch like a guy like Lionel Messi or like Rafa Nadal, like these are guys that are absolutely superior. To see a guy like Steph Curry, especially at his size, I can't say enough about him, especially at this age, and they need every ounce from him. He's a guy who I remember years ago, I was like concerned if he was going to be able to keep this up because he runs so much. And that's how, it's like gravity. Like wherever he goes, the defense needs to go. It's almost in an opposite way about Jokic, but we'll keep the Steph Curry here. Like he has this gravitational pull around him, and they're locking up Sabonis. Sabonis is doing absolutely nothing in the series. I'm a little concerned about Fox. I think he has like a fractured tip on his shooting hand. He's still averaging a bunch of points. He's
Yeah.
averaging 32 points a game. Steph is sixth on this list of playoff performers. He's averaging 32 a game, but he's shooting 5 for 13 per game from 3 point, 40% from three, 49% from the field. He's lighting it up, but he's helping everybody else get that opening. Do you see this series any differently? I think pre-series we were thinking Warriors. Of course, no road team has won so far. Maybe the Warriors can win the first road game this tonight. But what's your feelings on this series?
Well,
Okay,
pre-series, I picked the Kings. That was like my big upset.
you did.
I picked them in our draft also. I was like, you know what? I think they're gonna do well. I was obviously feeling very good when I up 2-0. I want to touch on when you first started when you mentioned Easter because this has
Yeah.
been by far the best series to watch. You watch this series, it's almost like they played a different game than the rest of it. It reminds you of watching like a Chiefs game where you're like, oh, that's a different type of NFL game that's high scoring. Like it's such a fun watch. And I'll mention my
Sure.
fiance watches no basketball. Matter of fact, she watches no sports at all. I mean, like probably knows like LeBron James, maybe Steph Curry. That's it. She couldn't name me anything. And she's watched 2 basketball games of the entire playoffs, the Kings Warrior game, and I was actually shocked because this was after the game. She watched the end of the first game, and she actually asked me when the second game was and watched it with me, and then asked me like 2 days later,
Uh-huh.
like, "Oh, when's the next game?" Because she actually enjoyed watching it. And normally,
Sure.
like, I'll put on a basketball game, she'll go in the other room and just like read a book, put on music, like no interest at all. Because even like the casual person can see the difference. It's like faster,
Yeah.
better, more exciting. The shots are going in. This is a fun watch for anybody, and I feel a little robbed because if Fox injury is bad, it's a broken tip of the index finger, you feel like you're robbed because this has been the best series. It's also been on paper, not just like the eye test is the best series, and on paper. It's the only series I went to do. We've had 3 of the 4 games come down pretty close to the end. 2 of them come down to literally the last shot.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah,
been
on
a great
Sunday on
series.
Sunday it was Knicks Cavs,
So
opening up, rock fight, grind him out, missed passes everywhere. They had zero interest. They were like eating chips in the
yeah,
corner, yapping. They're like, "Oh, Tim, you're watching." I'm like flipping from the kitchen, trying to like throw everything in the oven, like take care of the kitchen, help my mom out for sure. Just a good boy. So just loosely watching the
it's
next
just
game as much as possible. But then I'm like, guys, once the Warriors are on, like that's what I'm doing. And they couldn't help it. They couldn't even make fun of it after a while. They're like,
yeah.
oh wow, like, ooh, that was really a nice shot. And I remember my aunt once was like, oh damn. I was like, what? Ooh, okay, okay. He gets people that aren't interested in basketball at all, like interested. And I see, little kids at the park, like I try to teach them, like, all right, come on, guys, you got to work on layups more than threes. But that's the NBA today. Like they just jack
It's
it up.
just
They're like so tiny. I'm
that's
like,
just
you
the
could
effect.
barely reach, but like you want to be like Steph. He's such a great role model. It's so fun to watch.
I think tonight decides the
Sure.
rest of the series. I know Game 5 generally does. It's like the winner of Game 5 wins 80%. But because you're going to see, is Fox hampered? If Fox is hampered, then I think you're definitely going to say Golden State wins, and they probably win in 6. Because if he's hampered, they're going to win tonight, and then they'll close out at home. If he could play really well, then I think this series goes
Yeah.
7.
Plus the Warriors, if they
I
got
think
to get
that's
a
going to be the
road
thing.
game, it's going to be tough for Game 7. You got to get in 5 and then close out at home. They've been we don't have to exhaust it. I'm sure anybody's listening to any content about basketball, every time the words come up, it's always about how bad they are on the road and why are they such a great team at home. But
Yeah,
the fans are also extremely ruckus. Like, it's nice to see the Knicks at home, but like the Cavs aren't. It's nice to see the Knicks at home, but like the Cavs fans aren't as locked in as these Warriors fans and these Kings fans who haven't seen their team in the playoffs in decades. All right, before we wrap it up, Scotty, any
yeah.
last notes you want to plug in? Anything else on your mind?
Nothing jumps out crazy for me except for, let's just
Sure.
talk some non-playoff
Well, like Aaron
fuel
Rodgers.
outside. Like,
No,
all
okay.
right, next year. No, basketball, but say,
I got you.
like,
NBA.
not necessarily is it related to playoffs. Kawhi Leonard. Does he get cut from the Clippers or trade or something? Like, what goes on there? What happened this year to playoffs? Everybody thought Phoenix was going to crush him. And judging by how close it was, you'd think if he was there, they might have been able to win that series. So I'm really curious on how that, almost sets. I think it's a domino effect that's going to be hitting harder after the playoffs are over because we're distracted right now of how that affects the entire NBA, trades, cut, and it even goes down a what if scenario. Kawhi Leonard's career seems like a giant what if scenario of what if he did injured this year? What if he played this year? So that definitely jumps in my mind a little bit. And are we being a little unfair to the Sixers? Me, particularly, I keep talking about James Harden. They're the only team that swept, and like nobody's really talking about them. I think I put on the TV. I understand you can't talk about a team that's not playing, but they sweep it, and everybody is still, including us, saying, "Oh, Boston's going to be the next round." Nobody is giving them much credit at all. Is that a Doc Rivers effect? He
It's
has an
definitely
issue
Doc
with
Rivers
losing games
effect. I
series up
mean,
3-1.
he can't even get Joel Embiid openings when the man's healthy. Like, he's just we keep going back to coaching, like the Cavs and JB Bickerstaff, like Doc Rivers, of course, historically, like people don't trust him enough. Like, how much credit do you give to Doc? When you got Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, like Rondo, like Big Baby Davis, like that team's loaded. Like almost anybody can win with that, right? And people thought he was like a player's coach, but then even like CP3, JJ Redick, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, like that team, he wasn't able to do much with. It's tough. He needs this bad. And if you have Harden and Embiid, you got to do something. I don't have a lot of faith in Maxey to keep it up. I don't know if he's there yet. And Tobias Harris is like, he's that guy. I'm like, oh yeah, Tobias Harris is playing. I kind of forgot. He may have like a sneaky 15 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, like, but like he doesn't have like an impact on the game. Like, I know Maxey's on the court. He at least, like, he's flashy, he tries, he's moving. I got my eye on him even when he's off ball. Tobias Harris is a guy that, like, sometimes you watch a game, there's 10 guys to watch. I generally don't like focus my attention on the ball constantly. So he'll be a guy that I'm like, oh, he's been in the game for how many minutes? Oh, 22 minutes. I didn't realize Tobias Harris still playing. Like, he can't be your number 3 guy. But Maxey has been. But second round versus Brogdon and White, going back to it, if the coaching can figure it out, hopefully they could learn the lesson from the Trae Young and DeJounte Murray fiasco. You're losing 2 games to the Hawks. You got to get a chip on your shoulder and be like, all right, like, we're not letting this happen. I think the Celtics gotta take care of that series.
Okay, so I just
Dude,
want to throw in one more then, and not to stretch out because I forgot for a second. We're looking at a lot of potential coaching issues. Milwaukee loses. Do they consider firing Budenholzer? What if Boston actually loses? Let's say theoretically they lose 2 more in a row. What happens there? I want to keep my eye on, like, it was thrown under the radar. I don't know if anybody's paying attention that the Raptors
that's not
fired
even
Nick Nurse, who
sleeper.
I think is an
Like,
excellent coach.
everybody in the media has
And
been talking about that for a while. He doesn't even want to be a part of that team. I would almost guarantee it's gonna happen.
but what I'm saying is, if somebody underachieves hugely, right now it looks like Milwaukee. If you're Milwaukee, would
Oh,
you
Nick
consider
Nurse is
hiring him and
fantastic.
getting
He
rid of
just doesn't want
Budenholzer?
to be in that situation anymore. Something about
Really?
Toronto, like, no, he's like a Steve Kerr level. He's an Eric Spoelstra level. He's a genius, man. I love him. He does a lot of beautiful
Yeah,
things.
he's an excellent coach. So I'm saying, if we know he's a good coach, the question
You
is,
get
if
rid of
you're
your head
one of those
coach
teams, those
for
top
that.
4 or 5
Yeah, yeah.
teams, would you
Who's
consider
gonna get the
getting rid of
first?
your current coach? Let's take Budenholzer, for example. You were planning on keeping him no matter what, and you say, yeah, but It's not often that we have an excellent coach, top 5 coach available, so we can make that upgrade. Maybe Philly says, you know what, Doc, you keep losing these series. Maybe we want to go for this guy. How often do you have a top tier coach on the market? So if you're one of these top, say, 4 or 5 teams, and you lose in like what would be considered upset second round, all these teams we're talking about are teams that are the least conference finals teams. Then you say, hey, so we didn't plan on getting rid of our coach, but the opportunity is there. Sometimes the
Especially if you lose
opportunity isn't
first
always there. You just got
rounds.
to take it. So I'm curious about that. I want to see. I mean,
Yeah.
chaos is news, and news is fun to cover. So I want to see a interesting coach hire. I want to see a shocking. Oh my God!
So let's go. We got Knicks Heat second round. Bucks are gonna lose. Budenholzer's fired. Nick Nurse to the Bucks. Bucks win the championship next year. We're calling it right here. Let's go.
We're calling it out. I get your early predictions. You can probably get the best odds if you bet it now. I imagine Vegas will give you something.
Absolutely. All right, let's wrap it up right there. I love it. So, all right, nerdy sports audience, you could follow us on Spotify. Leave a review. You can follow us on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, YouTube. Watch the video. Check out my new background. Scotty's got a new mic. We both got our Yetis. We're ready to go. We're gonna come back weekly. We're gonna come back next week and give you some more deep dive on the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Hopefully, we'll talk a little more second round and there'll be some more fun. Hopefully Steph Curry's still alive. I would love to see Steph versus LeBron. You know where my heart lies, boys. All right, Scotty. And as always,
Keep it nerdy.
keep it nerdy. Peace.